So with that, our recording is going, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I'm going to go to our class announcements, and I hit you up with a couple quick announcements. First of all, tonight, what we're going to go into is precision measurement, and we have a fun video that I'll play some clips of, and I have the link there for you. I also added it to our modules tab. But also under announcements, I just posted this one that really is packed with three things. First of all, the demand is strong right now in the automotive industry. Like if you want to get a job out there in the industry, there's people looking for you. And I would say, just be honest with your experience. If you haven't had any hands-on classes or you've only done some hands-on things at home, just tell them that. But they're looking for people. And so this one right here, Nilo Acura, is looking for folks. So there is the service manager's number. You can check out the Nilo Acura website. So there's opportunities there. Speaking about positions at the dealerships, every year the California New Car Dealers Association, CNCDA, has scholarships available, and those go up to $5,000. And sometimes they do it in different regions, and there's been times where in our region where people haven't applied. So I encourage you to do that if you're interested in that. If your goal is to work at a dealership, or you are working at a dealer right now, that would be something great to check into. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk about summer classes. Now, my dean was supposed to send this out to almost all of our automotive students. I added it here because I just wanted you guys to know about what we have going on for this summer and for the fall. So here is the summer classes that are still open. I think this 140 class would be a good one for you. If you're anxious to get your hands on stuff and start working on some vehicles, this 140 class would be a great class for you to take. And I know it might be kind of discouraging because you go, oh, it's advanced skill and speed development. You might think, hey, I'm not advanced yet. But basically in 18100, we've talked about a lot of the basics. And after that education, you're going to be ready to get your hands dirty. Now, this AT140 class, you can take it up to 4 times. So, the first time you take it, we might just focus on basic things. We might just focus on the hands-on tasks from this class, like, some light brake jobs, using the tire machines, basic services, oil changes, coolant inspections, and coolant flushes, and all that type of stuff. I even have some shop cars that I want to completely disassemble and make into training aids and mock-ups and other things. And I'll tell you, firsthand experience, you learn a lot from just taking stuff apart because you got to see how it works, and then if you know how it works, you can figure out how it goes apart, goes back together. That's a big step forward in your education as a technician. So we got the 140 class. Now that's a hands-on class, but I'm doing the lectures online. Now there's not a ton of lecture. The lecture is mostly service tips and tricks and procedures of how to use various machines. So, an example of an online thing would be, okay, watch this YouTube link of how to use the tire machine, answer these 5 questions about the machine, and then you have my ARC certification. Okay, you know something about this machine, and the next day in class you go do that task, or you're ready to use that machine, so to speak. So not a ton of really hard lecture. It's mostly about getting you educated on the different shop equipment we have in the auto shop. Okay, so that's the 140 class. Now the 301 class is small gas engines. This class is online, but here's what I'm going to do for you guys. Is because our campus will be open, if you get stuck on a project or you need help, or you don't have an engine and you want to pick one up from me, like pick it up, check it out, that type of thing. We'll be able to set up appointments where I can meet with you and give you some hands-on training or help that you need, so that you can do, the class essentially online at home, but you can still work on stuff as well. So if you need to check out some tools, you want to check out some stuff, this summer we're going to be able to do a much better job with that class supporting you, because the campus will be open. Okay. I would have loved to run this class fully in person this summer. However, we were trying to keep everything spaced out adequately for social distancing. So we're going to run it one last time. It's an online format, but think of it as kind of a hybrid, because you will have the opportunities to meet with me if you need help working on stuff. Okay. 322 and 333, those are more advanced classes that would be, for some of our students that were like going through the ARC program before COVID hit. The idea is that they could pick up kind of where they left off. But I do want to say that these classes are good ones for you guys to maybe aspire to. These would be the two classes that you would take if your goal is to get your smog check license. Those would be those two classes. So I hope to see you in those at some point in time. So hopefully that made sense and you got to look at that a little bit. I'm going to go back to our class and we're going to go down to modules and we're going to look at our module on precision measurement. Here we go, all the way in week 12 now, which is hard to believe. And we're going into precision measurement. If I skip down to the assignment, you can see that there is a little worksheet on micrometers. There's a presentation here that we did on micrometers, and I'm going to use a little bit of that tonight. I also have video clips and different things and all kinds of stuff. With that, I'll tell you this, as an engine builder guy, I'm the one who teaches the engine repair classes, and I'm in the process of working on the curriculum for an engine building and machine class. Man, it's all about precision measurement. So I really enjoy precision measurement. In fact, let me flip this over to this link was in our class announcements, and it's also, if I go back, I also put, where did it go? I put it right here, building engines using measuring tools. This is off the Power Nation, which is a block of shows that they used to run on Saturday mornings and stuff on a variety of different cable networks. And now I'm not even sure which one, but what I like about it, you can see these on Amazon. I know some of them are on there. But they have it where you can just go to the website and watch it for free. They have little commercials in there, but it's pretty good stuff. So what are we looking at right here? Well, we're deep inside an engine. We're looking at the crankshaft, and I wanted to point out this little piece of paper and this smashed piece of wax. That's called Plasti Gauge. And basically, we're measuring a thickness here that's somewhere between 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch. And so 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch is about the size of, your hair. If you plucked a piece of hair out of your head and you measured it in a micrometer or with a dial caliper, it would measure somewhere between 2 to 3 thousandths. So, I mean, when you're building engines, that's the type, that's the size of stuff that you're measuring. So let me play this for just real quick. I know it's going to be a little choppy. We won't play more than, 30 seconds or so.
Tolerance. Our reading is between 2 and 3 thousandths. Now the crank comes out, and with the cap installed and the bore gauge set to the crank's journal, we'll verify the Plasti Gauge's accuracy. It measures 27 10,000ths, and that's within a half thousandth of our range.
So the problem with a lot of these Saturday morning engine building or automotive shows is they do everything super fast and they make everything look super easy.
All you do
They do that to keep it, you know, entertaining and make it look like, hey, you could do that at home. But, you know, in this picture, this guy's got thousands of dollars worth of specialty tools and stuff going on. Now, the engine he's building right there is a small block Chevrolet. In his hand, he's got a dial bore gauge, and he's also used a micrometer. And I guess what I'm getting to is that if you're going to be building engines, a lot of people think it's just slapping parts together, but it's a lot of cleaning, it's a lot of inspection, and it's a whole lot of precision measurement. And so that's tonight's topic, precision measurement. And, you know, it may not be the most exciting, but I'll tell you what is exciting was when you build your own motor and hear that thing fire up for the first time. It's like a life-changing experience. So whether you're the, you know, hot rod enthusiast, do it yourself, or doing stuff at home in your home shop, or you're going to be a professional, if you're going to be doing work like this, you have to get good with precision measurement. Now, let me minimize this screen a little bit, and I'm going to change my share. I'm going to switch it over to our presentation here. And, you know, precision measurement, you know, starts with, a lot of times when you look at it, it starts with the micrometer, right? And a micrometer is a tool that can measure accurately to 1/1000th of an inch. Now, if we look at the number line here, right, we look at our different places, we have the tens, right? I'll put a T right there. The hundreds and the thousandths. I'll put a TH. And some micrometers can measure down to 10/1000ths of an inch. Super fine measurements. And that's what you need for building modern engines and doing very precision work. However, I like to take a step back and say, you know what? Before we jump in the micrometer, there's other stuff that we need to we need to look at as far as measurement. Okay, so I'm going to change my screen share again on you. And this time, I'm going to just share my screen. And we're going to escape out of this and move some stuff to the bottom, because what I want to do is fire up the good old document camera. And we're going to start with the ruler and then go from there. Oops, look, I got something up on the screen. What is this right here, guys? What am I looking at right there? I saved this one just for you guys because we were talking about this last week or the week before. What is this thing right here, gang? You guys tell me. This thing, not all this other stuff. Not everybody at once now. You're killing me. This is a radiator cap, okay? And I said if you're doing a cooling system inspection, always inspect your radiator cap. And if it looks sketchy at all, replace it. I also said I hate this style. I really don't like the style with this little lever on it that you can lift up, because you know what happens is people see that. In fact, if I zoom in on it, you'll see it even says on there, lift up. And they see that and they go, oh, my car's overheating. Oh, I'll lift up on this. Once you lose the pressure in the cooling system, it definitely begins to boil over and people burn themselves and cause all kinds of problems. So I would never recommend one of these styles of cap, especially for like a customer's car, because it seems like it always creates problems. Secondly, look at the gasket on the bottom of this. I actually had an issue where this was off of my Spec Miata race car and it was getting hot out on the racetrack. I was seeing the temperature increase. And of course, this was back in January, February. So it was not hot outside, but yet the engine was running kind of hot. And I was losing some coolant on the car. I could tell I was leaking, and then when I looked in the radiator, I could tell it was low. So I figured, okay, that's why it's getting hot. It's because it's low on coolant. And I was pressure testing the system, and I had bypassed looking at this, and that was a mistake. And once I realized, oh, this gasket's torn, that was my problem right there. The system would pressurize, it would blow through that seal right there, leak down the side, kind of leak where the lower radiator hose was, where the coolant dripped off the side of the radiator, and threw me for a loop. So if you're servicing your cooling system, if this cap looks sketchy, replace it. All right. Now back to precision measurement. When it comes to measuring stuff, it doesn't hurt to start with a ruler. Let's get that up on the screen. I grabbed this little one because it takes that, it's a fractional ruler, right? It's not metric, it's fractional, and it takes that inch and it divides it up, right? Divides it up into 16 segments. So if I look at this, right, I'll start right here. So I got 1/8, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8, 1/2, or you can look at that as 4/8, right? Reduced down to 1/2, 5/8, 3/4, and 7/8, right? And so they've taken the ruler and there they've divided it up into 8 sections. But in between those 8 sections, there's smaller sections, right? So there's 1/8, but right here, let me get right on there, is 1/16, right? And then below that is 30 seconds. So it's 1 32nd, 2 32nds, that'd be 1/16, 3 32nds, 2 16ths, that divides down into 1/8, right? So the fractional system is kind of weird, and for the folks who don't like fractions, I get that. That can be kind of frustrating. But I want to relate it to a tool that we have talked about and that you guys know are wrenches. In fact, of course, it's going upside down. Let's flip that sucker over, right? That's 1/2, right? So that directly relates to that measurement right there. Now, this is your typical tape ruler. What I wanted to show you is if you're working in the machine shop, you're likely to carry around one of these. This is a machinist's ruler. So if you're doing machine work, you got to measure stuff a lot, and you usually want a finer scale than you have with your typical ruler. So the smallest scale that this guy went down to was 32nds of an inch. You can see that this guy, if I move him over, he measures 32nds of an inch at the top, and the bottom scale goes down to 64ths of an inch. That's so small, like without my glasses, I can't even see it. But that's still a much coarser scale than some of these other tools that I'm going to put on the screen. So I do think everything builds. And one thing we do in machine work is we take this inch fractional system, and I'll tell you, if you're working on import engines or other things, you might be using metric tools. But I also see a lot of shops, a lot of machine shops that use a mix of both metric and standard. And so they, the technicians and the machinists and builders, they just kind of get used to using both of those things. So here I have a dial caliper. And then below that, I have the infamous micrometer. Okay, so I got a little bit of everything here. I also have a dial indicator, and I got all kinds of specialty gauges and stuff up there. Well, let me do one thing here while I still have the rulers and stuff up. I'm going to put up my calculator here. And when I do this, if I take 1/2, right, and I divide it out, 1 divided by 2, I get 0.5. Now I could also say 0.500, or we could say that's 500 thousandths of an inch. So by dividing out the fractions, whatever they are, let's say it's 7/8 of an inch. Oh, that's 875 thousandths. Let's say it's 9/16. Oh, okay. That's 562 thousandths and 5/10 or 5/10 thousandths is how we would say that. So at any case, in the machinist world, we typically talk about stuff being in thousandths of an inch. How do we get from fractional, right? Fractions like this, or like on our measuring tape here, to decimal points? We just divide out the fractions. And when you do that, I feel like it makes stuff a lot more straightforward. So let's take another one. Here I have a wrench that's 7/16. Well, what is that going to be? Well, 7 divided by 16, right? Oh, okay, that's 437 thousandths and 5/10 or 5/10 thousandths. So that's how you get that thing to a decimal point. Now, I want to show you another trick, okay? There's one magic number that I have memorized over the years, and that is 25.4. Now, what's the deal with 25.4? Well, if I want to go from metric to standard, all I have to do is remember 25.4. So, for example, let's go back to our 1/2 inch. Is that wrench close to a metric size? Well, I don't know. Let's divide it out. So here we go. I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to say 1 divided by 2, or 1/2 inch. Oh, that's right. That's 500 thousandths. Well, I'm going to multiply that by, so times 25.4. And guess what I get? 12.7. Okay, 12.7. So you know what that is? That's really, really close to 13 millimeters, isn't it? And so what you'll find if you can't find a 13 millimeter wrench in your toolbox, if you have a 1/2 inch wrench that maybe is a little bit worn, it will fit a nut or a bolt that's 13 millimeters. So that is my tech tip for you guys, is to, there is conversions, okay? And how do you convert it over? You just have to know what's what. So my most popular ones that I use are 11 millimeters, 13 millimeters, and 14 millimeters. I use these all the time. Well, how do I do that? Well, because if we do the math on them, let's say, for example, we'll go backwards now. We'll say 14 millimeters divided by 25.4. I'm dividing it instead of multiplying it because I'm going the other direction. And I come up with 0.551, or let's say 552. Okay. Well, what's 9 divided by 16? Okay. 562. Okay. So 9/16 and 14 millimeters are really close. Likewise, 7/16 and 11 millimeters are really close. So a lot of times you can use those interchangeably. Another one of my favorites is 5/16 and 8 millimeters. Two sizes very, very close to one another. So if you're missing one size of tool in your toolbox, you can usually substitute stuff. So who says that math can't be a help to you, right? So we're doing a little bit of fractions, doing a little bit of math, and it's good stuff. So let me do this. I'm going to clear out some of these scribbles now. And let's really look at our precision measurement tools, okay? So we got the ruler down. Hopefully, you know, we even got the machinist ruler down. And now let's look here at our dial indicator. And I'm going to put him up at just a little bit of an angle here so that maybe we take a little bit of that reflection off the screen. He needs to be at more of an angle. Hold on. There we go. Well, I still don't know if that helped. So this is a dial caliper, and I love this tool because it does all kinds of measurements. In fact, if I move this guy out of the way, if you zoom in on it, and let's look right here, it tells you on the dial that it measures to the tens, hundreds, thousands. So this tool right here can measure down to the 1,000th of an inch, or 0.001, okay? But because there is some gear teeth and stuff in here, the way this particular tool works, I'll show you its gear teeth in there. Right there. There's a little bit of slop in the gears. And so what we say is realistically a dial caliper like this is accurate within, oh, maybe 2 to 3 thousandths, okay? So he can measure down to 1,000ths, but his accuracy window is a little bit bigger just because of the mechanics that make this work, okay? But here's what's so awesome about this thing. If I erase those scribbles, get them out of the way, is that this guy does all kinds of measurements. So, for example, he can do an outside measurement like that. I can clamp down on something and I can measure it, okay? This guy is measuring at, this is right on the 50, but I'll clamp it down. Lock it in, take that guy out of there. So he's measuring at 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 450, 1, 2, 3, 453 thousandths of an inch. That's what he's measuring right there. That was the thickness of this. But we can also do an inside measurement. So look at imagine this is like a precisionally machined hole and we want to measure how big that is. I can come in there and I can do that inside measurement. So I can do outside measurements, I can do inside measurements, and I can do a depth measurement. Because on the end of this, it has a piece that extends, right? The tip extends, and I can measure how deep something is, and I can get that measurement. So this thing has 1, 2, 3 different types of measurement it can do. And then here's a bonus one most people don't know about, is it also can do a step measurement on this end. So there's really 4 different types of measurements that you can do with a dial caliper, but he's only accurate within a couple of thousandths because of the mechanics involved. Now, all that then leads me back. Let me do a couple of dial type tools. This is a dial indicator. So that was a dial caliper. This is a dial indicator. You can see that this dial indicator again reads down to the 1,000th scale. Okay, so that's the accuracy of that and how fine it can read. So each one of these little lines on this dial represents 1,000th of an inch. Okay, and then one time all the way around the dial. So now I've gone around the dial twice, and what you'll notice is now I'm pointed at the 2 right there. Okay, so a trip around the dial is 100 thousandths. Now, This is one of my high-end tools. We use this primarily for reconditioning connecting rods. This is off of our AG300 gauge. This is a very, very fine dial indicator. This guy measures each big number is 1/1000th, which seems absolutely crazy. But what that means is that this is 1/1000th or 0.001. That is 0.002. So each little line in here, like this line right there, that would be 0.0011 or 1/1000th and 1/10,000th. So he measures down to the 10,000th size, and that's how accurate you need to be for something like a connecting rod. So those are those dial tools. Well, what about the micrometer here? The micrometer is kind of like your go-to precision measurement tool. Okay, like I said, a standard micrometer measures down to 1/1000th of an inch, and those thousandths are right on the end of this guy. And before we get into reading it, what we should do is talk about, well, how does this guy work? Well, essentially, the mechanics of this, what makes it work so well and be accurate, is the mechanics are very simple. The mechanics are not different than that right there, a nut on a bolt. The frame of the micrometer essentially is the nut, right? And the spindle and part that you turn to do the measurement is the bolt threading in and out of that frame of the micrometer. And so it just has a very, very fine thread pitch inside its nut and bolt inside the micrometer. So one thing I will say about a micrometer is that this is a precision measurement device. It is not a C-clamp, okay? It's a precision measurement device. It is not a C-clamp. And so oftentimes what I see is that people will over tighten these things and they don't realize that the threads on the inside of the micrometer are super, super, super fine, okay? And if you over tighten them, you will strip out the threads. Now, what's the thread pitch here? It's 40 threads per inch, or TPI, 40 threads per inch. What that means is if this handle goes around the clock one time, see how there's a big 20 right there? One trip around is 1/40th of an inch, right? Because there's 40 threads per inch. Well, if you divide out 1/40th of an inch, let's do that. That's 25 thousandths. So one trip around, it's not 20 thousandths, I haven't gone all the way around. One trip around is 25 thousandths of an inch. That's how this thing works. It's not much different than a nut and a bolt. It's just a super fine thread pitch, okay? And if you over tighten a micrometer, what will happen is you'll strip out the gear teeth in there. You could even flex out the frame of the micrometer. So again, there's a certain technique to using it. And for that, let me switch our presentation away from the document camera now that you've got to see some of the live tools, and go into our PowerPoint. So I'm going to switch my share. There we go. Boom. And then with this, what we're going to say is, okay, these are all the parts. So we have the thimble, and that's the part we put our fingers on. And the thimble is connected to the spindle here, which causes that micrometer to move out there. In fact, let me turn on my annotation tools here, and let me turn on my annotation tools and get this moving. So as I turn the thimble, it moves out this spindle here, and that's getting my measurement, and my piece that I'm going to measure goes right in between the spindle and the anvil. So that could be a telescoping or snap gauge like I have in my hand right here, or it could be an actual piece that I'm trying to measure. But that's where I do my measurement. And like I said, measures down to 1/1000th of an inch, or on special micrometers with the veneer scale, or vernier scale, as some folks pronounce it, it'll measure down to 10/1000th of an inch. So with that, let's keep going down here. So 40 threads per inch. I think we've already talked about that. 1/40th of an inch each for each turn of the thimble. Now we got a really good look on here. So with each line on the barrel here, and of course, this part here is the barrel. Each one of these lines represents 25 thousandths. So 25 thousandths, 50 thousandths, 75 thousandths. Oh, one, that's 100 thousandths. Or you could say that's a 0.1. Okay. So the way you measure stuff with a micrometer is kind of like counting money. That's how I relate it. If you've ever been wanting to, I don't know, maybe it's late at night, you want to do the Taco Bell run and you're all out of money, and you start digging through your couch cushions for change, right? What do? You'd count dollars first, right? Because that's the most amount of money. Then you'd count your quarters. And then if you were getting real desperate, right, you needed, it used to be back in the day, it was 59 cents for a taco. So it could be like, I needed 4 more pennies to make that taco. Well, your pennies would be what's represented here on the thimble. So here's how I would count it. I look for these numbers first. So on this picture right here, I see 9. Okay. So that'd be like my $9. In fact, let's make that a little bit bigger. So I got my $9, right? And then I see I got 1, 2 lines. So that's 2 quarters. So 9.25. Now I'm up to 9.50. Well, now I'm counting pennies. And I have 17, 18, just about 19 pennies, right? So I'll add 19 to this thing, and I'm going to add it all together. So I got 5 plus 1 is 6. So I got $9.69, but it's not really $9.69. It'd be 0.969, or 969 thousandths of an inch is how you'd put this all together. Now, this guy actually happened to be right in between the 18 and the 19 here. If you look very carefully, all right, he's right. 18, 19 is kind of in between. So he's really probably 968 thousandths and 6/10 or something is what it really is. And that's where, if you have a micrometer with the vernier scale, you get a little bit finer reading, and you can break down, you can split up those thousandths. Okay. So that's how you count it. It's like counting money, right? It's count the dollars, count the quarters, and count the pennies. These are our dollars. These lines here are the quarters. And ultimately, it's these lines here that are the pennies. And we just add them all together. So let me get rid of these drawings. And let's do one of these together. So again, I got 1, 2, 3. So that's $3, right? So I'm going to put my text tool up there and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to be a 0.3. Okay. Now, how many quarters do I see? 1, 2. So that's $3.50. And do I have any pennies? Nope, that's on the zero. So there's my reading, 350 thousandths of an inch, or 0.350. Okay, that's how you would count that up. Let's do another one. So I'm going to go to this guy here. And we will clear out the drawings. All right, so how did we get there? Well, what we can see here is we have 1 quarter, 50 cents, 75. Oh, there's $1, right? 125, 150. So I got 150, which is what we're showing right here. Now, 10, 11, 12. So 12 on the thimble. I added all together and I got 162 thousandths. So with that, let me change my screen share once again, because at this point, you know, I have several different, you know, different examples and, you know, readings and stuff for you to do here. And yeah, there's specialty digital micrometers. People always ask me about those. And here's the proper holding technique. And there's a little friction ratchet stop there to prevent you from over tightening it. But I wanted to point out for you what I have for you on Canvas. So I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to get out of some of this other stuff. Now what we're going to do is switch this back to our internet here. And at this point, we're going to go back to our precision measurement. And what you'll see is I have a couple web links here that you can practice using a micrometer on. Okay. Nothing's going to be exactly like really using a micrometer, but we're trying to get the basics across here. And so this is pretty cool. So here's this little micrometer simulator. And what I can do is click it, and I can then grab a reading, and I can, you know, figure out, well, what is it? I can practice adding it up. So I see 8. Okay, so there's 825, 850. Looks like just about 5 more, right? So just a smidge less than 855, right? Because it's just underneath that. So maybe 854. And if you look at it, they even do give us a little reading right there where we can read, okay, that's 854 thousandths and 7 ten thousandths, or 7 tenths. And they show us the vernier scale right here that breaks down those 10 thousandths. So there is a pretty nifty micrometer simulator, but there's also a cool little dial caliper simulator that I grabbed for you as well. So it's a great way to practice with reading these. And, you know, like the dial caliper, super useful tool. So here we are at 191 thousandths. How did I get that? Because I can see the 1, I've definitely crossed over him, but I haven't quite crossed over the 2, right? It's just ahead of the 2. So I am at 100 thousandths. I've gone all the way around the dial to 91, and that's how I got 191 thousandths, or 0.191, 0.191. All right. So I got a couple cool little simulators on there. I hope you guys like those. And if you want to see the tools in use, like I talked about earlier, watch this video, okay? They do a cool job putting together the small block Chevrolet engine. At the end of this video, they actually run it on the dyno and see how much horsepower it makes. And there's a list of all the parts that they use. So the idea is if you had a spare 350 engine block laying around, you could buy those parts, put together that motor, and if you do a good job with your build, you should make the same amount of horsepower that these guys make on theirs. Okay. So anyways, that's a cool video. You'll see some of the measurement tools being used. Yes, they use them really fast, and it's a little bit harder than they make it look, but it's a great example of using some precision measurement tools. Now, one place that we might have done some precision measurement work in 18100 in a normal semester is we would have probably done some measurement intro when we did brakes, okay? Because one common area that we measure that we measure with the micrometer would be to measure the thickness of our rotors. And somewhere around here, I have my rotor micrometer, or at least I thought I did. Here it is. So with the rotor micrometer, it is a little bit different than a standard micrometer. And the chief thing about it here is right at the end of this thing. So at the end of the rotor micrometer here, if I get it on my little camera here, you can see that the end comes to a point. That way, if you had any grooves in your rotor, you could put that point right in the groove and figure out the smallest thickness of the rotor. You'd want to measure its minimum thickness. So anyways, this is a rotor micrometer. A lot of times we'll do some measurement stuff when it comes to brake inspection and rotors. How I told you guys you get around that is if the rotors look suspect at all, just change them with good quality rotors, right? If in doubt, replace it with new ones. When you're building an engine, you can't just always do that. And so there's no getting around precision measurement when you're building an engine. With the brake rotors, you can see that there's a couple measurements here. One where they're using a dial indicator to measure runout, and then they're using a micrometer to measure rotor thickness. You know, hey, if we weren't sure about the rotors, we could always replace them. Yeah, it might cost us a couple extra $100 on our brake job, but as a safety thing, it would probably be well worth that cost, right? So here's a picture of a guy taking it right out of the box and measuring the thickness of that rotor, brand new. So anyways, there are some specialty rotors for different things, or specialty micrometers, I should say, for different things. And measuring rotors is a good example of that. And yes, these guys do come in digital micrometers as well, both electronic and analog, but a lot of micrometers are just like we've gone over. And so I usually get this question a lot. Can't you just get digital ones? Well, you can, but not necessarily for everything. So if you are going to be a machinist, if you're going to be building engines, you have to be well versed in your micrometers. You have to be able to read traditional or analog micrometer, if you will, just as easily as you'd read a digital one. Okay, it like reading this is like tying your shoes. Okay, whereas if the only micrometer you could use was a digital one like that, it'd be like you could only wear shoes that used Velcro. Okay, so anyways, it's a necessary skill for an engine builder. And you will see the guys in our engine power show doing just that. And they all have all kinds of good videos in there that are pretty entertaining and fun to watch there. So bringing it back to our class and kind of wrapping stuff up, again, if I go back to our precision measurement module, there are those good simulators for you to practice on. There's that video link to the engine build video. And if we go back to the assignment on measurement, and I'm just going to download the form here, I think. There it goes. It has us name the parts of the micrometer, and it gives us some blanks for doing some different micrometer readings, okay? Just to give you a little bit of exposure to it. Obviously, you're not going to be a micrometer expert with this worksheet. You're not even getting the feel of it, but you're at least aware of what a micrometer is, basically how to do the measurement, right? Count the dollars, count the quarters, count the pennies. And we'll do a few more of those. And then, you know, it gets the basics across. What I would love for you to do, maybe this fall, if you're going to take more classes with this, is take the AT 314 engine building course, because in that class, you're going to take apart a V8 engine, fully reassemble it, build it up, and get it running by the end of the class. And you will get good at using all your precision measurement tools in that course. And I'm actually working on an advanced course where you bring in your own engine, and we not only build it, but we do some of the machine work here at the college, and you can get that thing fired up and running. So, and that falls right in line with our performance program, where you could then, you know, build your engine, get it running in your car, and then measure the horsepower that it makes on our chassis dynos. So all kinds of cool stuff. So remember, a micrometer is not a C-clamp, and we always want to take care of it. I'm going to give you a couple of tech tips, but first let's answer a few of these questions for you here. I'll go down to the bottom of the page, and let's put some of these guys together. Okay, and we're going to change this one right here. All right, so let's do this one right here. We see the number 5 right there. Okay, so that's going to tell us that we have a 0.5, right? But then after that, we see that we got 1, 2, 3 lines. So that's going to add on another 75. So that would be a 0.075. So now we added on 75 thousandths. So we have a 0.5 plus a 0.075. Now we count on, well, how many thousandths do we measure here? Well, there's 10, 11, 12. So our last thing here is and we add this all together. So we got 5 plus 75 plus 12. We add it all up, and we end up with 0.58. 5 plus 2 is 7. So our answer for this question is 587 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so that's the process that you go to read these micrometers, and after a while, it becomes really natural. It's like second nature. Again, it's like tying your shoes. So when you were a little buddy, I'm sure tying your shoes, it was difficult. It was hard. It was a big deal. And now you can do it with your eyes closed just about, right? Well, you won't be able to do this with your eyes closed, but it does get to be very second nature as you do it over and over and over again. And if you end up building engines, that's how you will get with it for sure. So that's how we read our micrometers. But as always, I like to give you guys some tech tips. And so we're going to finish off with a couple of tech tips here. Let me clear out these drawings. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the document camera. So I'm going to do a new share. I'm going to share the main screen, and we're going back to the document camera. There it is. All right. So the first tech tip is, remember, nut and a bolt. That's how the micrometer works. Second tech tip is this is not a C-clamp, so don't make it too tight. You will strip out these threads on the inside. All right. Third tech tip related to a micrometer, if you really have to roll it around, you can roll it on your arm, and that's nice and smooth, and it prevents you from over torquing stuff. Okay. And so I'll just keep doing that. Fourth tech tip is this guy's off just a little bit. Before I do a measurement, I always see, does it line up? And actually, oh yeah, that one does line up. Now that I can see it larger on the screen, that is perfectly zeroing up. I would never store my micrometer that way. Okay, so fourth tech tip is always check to make sure that it zeroes out. And the fifth tech tip would be don't store your micrometers this way, because believe it or not, this thing will heat up, and when it heats up, it expands, and that can alone, storing it that way, can throw it out of calibration. So if I go to store my micrometer, I'm going to always open this guy up a bit so that I don't end up throwing my micrometer out of calibration. Okay. Okay. Now, so there was 5 tech tips, but we're leading on to more than that, because what I have right here is a set of feeler gauges. Now, feeler gauges are thin strips of metal that are machined to precise sizes. So, for example, that feeler gauge has been machined to be exactly 14 thousandths of an inch, or 0.35 millimeters. And we can use that feeler gauge to check the accuracy of our micrometer and our readings. So I'm going to put that feeler gauge right there. And in that engine video that I linked for you, they do actually use feeler gauges to check the piston ring end gap. And we're going to come down and we're going to do our measurement here. And we're going to see, is that down at 14 thousandths? My goodness, I think it is, because here we're at 15 thousandths right up here. But when I look at where those two lines intersect, yeah, that's right at 14 thousandths. So I can use my feeler gauge set to develop my feeling for using the micrometer and to train myself, kind of like I gave you those links to websites with virtual micrometers. Well, if you want to train yourself on a real micrometer, you can do that with your a feeler gauge set, a good feeler gauge set. And this one, you might think, well, what do we use these for? When we have precision measurements that we want to take that are in between components, that's what we would use a feeler gauge set for. So a common thing is valve clearance adjustment. If I'm adjusting valves, I'll be using a set of feeler gauges to do just that. Okay, so hopefully that made some sense to you. I'm going to change the screen share again. And this one I'm going to bring back to our internet page. And so on our, on our assignment, you know, We have some quiz questions like we always do. We got our micrometer worksheet. I already gave you one of the answers. You can see it's pretty straightforward. There's some great video clips on how to use a dial caliper, how to read a micrometer, that will kind of fill in any gaps that I might have left in our conversation tonight. We even have some stuff in millimeters. So if you are a big fan of the metric system, we can show you how to use metric micrometers and calipers. We even have a vernier caliper on here. So all kinds of measurement stuff. If you're interested, you can go through those, get your readings down, and get some exposure to precision measurement. And like I said, if I go back to our module, and I also put this in the class announcements. Under week 12, I got that building an engines video and links you up to right here. And they do a really cool job putting that thing together. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you got some exposure out of it and some tech tips. I know precision measurement doesn't seem really exciting, but like I said, through precision measurement, you can build some really exciting things. That's for sure. Now, next week, we're going to be getting into fasteners. And then the week after that, we're into some thread repair. And then finally, we get into some electrical diagnostics and some OBD stuff. So if you guys, want to get into some of this stuff, I certainly encourage you to. There's all kinds of great multimeters that you can get even at your local auto parts store, like this one right here, that do a great job with basic electrical measurements. And then with the OBD, there's all kinds of neat scanner adapters like this little VPeak one here that works really good with Android phones that you can use to scan your computers and stuff in your car. So anyways, if you're interested in that stuff, that's where we go in. In fact, in my scanner class, we're using interfaces like this and the car scanner app to diagnose problems in our engines. So if you have a check engine light and stuff or something like that on, and you want to get started ahead and work on that stuff now and pull some codes and data and want to get my advice on it, I'd be happy to use your car as an example for our class when we get there. Okay, so that's a little look at what we have coming down the road. As we wrap things up, do you guys have any questions for me? I have a little bit more grades to update. Our grades are fairly current now. I just don't have all of last week's assignments done and graded, but we're coming right along and we're in the home stretch. So hope you guys are enjoying it. I hope you guys are getting something out of it. And again, the AT140 class would be a great class for you this summer because you could put your hands on a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about this summer. You could go out and actually do it. And if you're looking to get a jump start, remember that there's all kinds of extra credit assignments, kind of hands-on assignments that I put together. So if you're feeling adventurous and you want to do some work on there, for example, last week we looked at this extra credit assignment on servicing your transmission or differential. You could jump into that, and I'll certainly, if you guys do any work on your cars, we'll give you extra credit points for that. Okay, so until next week, you guys stay safe out there, keep learning, and keep having fun. All right, I don't see any more questions in the chat, so with that, I will let you get on with your night. So you guys have a great one. We'll see you next week. Okay, bye everybody.